Welcome to Mental Mages. We are Shayna and Kathy, just two therapists geeking out about pop culture and mental health.
Our discussions do not substitute for mental health treatment. We might be therapists, but we aren't your therapists.
Come on, let's go on an adventure. Welcome back to Mental Mages. We are super excited for this week's episode. It's going to be structured just a little bit differently. We are talking with one of my favorite human beings on the planet today to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. I will shift over to introduce Olivia, and Olivia will share stuff about herself.
Hi, I'm Olivia. I am a licensed clinical social worker. My husband was on the podcast a couple months ago talking about art as part of the five senses. I love geeky stuff. I love nerdy stuff. I didn't think I would ever love Dungeons and Dragons, and now is one of my favorite things ever.
Yay. So last time when we talked about Dungeons and Dragons, we were just building my character, but we didn't really go into much about what it is and how much fun it is. I think it's more just like Shayna trying to explain random mechanics to me.
That's okay. I mean, that's still part of my experience with Dungeons and Dragons is still figuring out random
Same.
mechanics. So
Olivia, so you said like you never thought that you would get into this. What did you find yourself really liking about it?
I liked over time that I could, in a sense, kind of play the opposite of who I present as in my personal life. I'm not much of a talker. I'm kind of quiet. I don't like to put myself kind of like in the center. And so then as I'm playing as my character, I can do things that I probably would never do personally, like run up and start a conversation with a random stranger or like make the first move.
And just so everyone knows, like the three of us are currently in a campaign together with a few other all therapists, which probably definitely impacts how we play. But
and
was your
write backstories.
yes, and we will, I think, get into that. Now, did you play for the first time with Shayna or in a different setting?
No, the first time I played was with another couple of friends, but it was online and I just didn't really connect with it. So, like, my first actual, like, I guess, serious campaign would be with Shayna, though.
Oh, do you want to tell them about the wonderful person that influenced your interest in Dungeons and Dragons?
You?
Yes. Why do you sound so like, oh my gosh?
Someone's
I'm,
fishing.
I was like, I remember the one conversation we had getting coffee that one day where you're like, so that's what you're talking about?
Yes, your defining moment of love in Dungeons and Dragons. Yes, it was a big moment for me.
Okay, what I.
Okay, backstory. So backstory. Ryan wanted to start playing. Our original party kind of fizzled out, which happens. You know, if people grow up, or in our case, people graduated and kind of moved on, and so we wanted to start playing again. And so we asked a couple people, a couple of those people being Matt and Olivia, and it was kind of at the beginning of our relationship with them. Um, and Olivia decided she didn't want to play, that she wasn't really into it, which is okay. And we were just like, okay, cool. And I was the only girl for a while
And
playing.
was that,
Um,
Olivia, based on your not great experience the first go round virtually?
No, I was just like going through a rough season with work and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't have the mental energy to do anything like this because it just seemed really overwhelming.
Yeah.
and the fact that you didn't like it.
Yeah, I guess a big part of that is, well, I didn't know that I didn't like it, I guess, because I wasn't giving it a chance.
Excellent. Enter me. So it's like the first time we hung out, and I was like just telling her, not like trying to pressure or anything, like genuinely just like trying to understand, you know, what's maybe the drawbacks, or what is it that you're not feeling. I really wanted a girl to play, to be honest, so there was a little bit of pressure, but not like I hope I didn't make you feel pressured.
No.
So I was talking about my love for it, in that I don't have to be Shayna. I don't have to be a therapist. I don't have to take care of other people in these moments. I can make stupid choices. I can do something really silly. I can pull pranks. Like I can do again things that I Shayna wouldn't do. Um and I could be bold or I could be shy or I could be um anything I wanted to be. And I really found it very therapeutic in a way. Um that maybe there are things that I would like to do that I know I'm never going to do in my lifetime just because it's just I don't have time for it, right? And you get to kind of play that stuff out. You get to travel and you get to find things and meet people, and it's so much fun. And I talked about or something that I found really helpful with Dungeons and Dragons. It's helped with my own confidence. Um, because again, I get to play out things that I wouldn't maybe normally do, and it's like, wow, this actually worked out. Maybe I can be more confident in my choices in real life. um, and so that's the conversation I remember having, um, with no pressure. But then a couple days later, Ryan's like, oh, Olivia said she would try it.
That's
And so
awesome.
that was like, yeah, I was super excited about it. And again, that was like the first time we ever hung out, just the two of us at all.
Yeah.
Because that's what's funny. Just a little more backstory about Shayna and Olivia is that even though they're both social workers who graduated from the same school of social work, they didn't become friends together. Their husbands were friends, and they met through Matt and Ryan.
Yep, we played board games.
Now, since that time, how many campaigns have y'all done together?
3 technically,
K Kind
kind
of,
of.
yeah, so, like yeah, the one main one so we still have our original characters. We've been playing those characters now for
Year and a half,
a
almost
year
2
and a half, yeah.
years. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I wanna say it's past 2 years now. That's
yeah,
wild.
yeah, it is. So we went back to, like so we've been doing this kinda side mini campaign for a little while for, like, 6 months. Ryan's like, "It'll take, like, 6 weeks," and it took, like, 6 months. Um, but it was weird. Like, we went back to our normal campaign this last week, and I was like, "Whoa, we're on like level 7. What the heck?" It's like, I are we on level? I think we are. And I was like, "We've been on level 3 for like months." On our other characters. So, and then we have kind of this little like mini thing. Um, ooh, tell them our names, Olivia.
In our main campaign, our party, we are the Uncrustables.
Nice.
And then in like a side, like the little, so occasionally someone wanted to try out, like one of the other players wanted to try out their hand in DMing. So being the dungeon master, the game master. And so then we kind of made characters that would do these little adventures. Um,
Yes, the sons and daughters of Capri. 'Cause we have the Uncrustables, and we have the, Capri Suns.
So now
yeah.
we just need to make like the hot Cheetos or something.
Oh, don't worry. So then this last one that we did, we were the Boppets. And
Nice.
so yes, so we would all like, when we put our hands in and did like the cheer, one of us would be we never got this right, by the way, because we just didn't. But one of us would be like, pull it and then flick it and then twist it and then bop it. And so, yep, that was and then we would get it wrong and then argue about, wait, I'm flick it. So
It's like, who was who?
but that was incredibly fun. That was an incredibly fun little side thing. And now we're back to our regular adventure.
And then, Shayna, you wanted to try your hand at DMing, and that is how we started the campaign that we have. It's all women, all therapists. So we've been doing that for several months now. Tell me how that experience has been for you to go from, being a player to being the DM.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Me neither.
Yes, it's great. Um, DMing it's fun in a totally different way. Um, it's a lot of prepping. So what is Dungeons and Dragons? So Dungeons and Dragons is a what's called a tabletop role playing game. with a lot of rules. So in a lot of ways it has like an open universe, which is awesome. Like you can do all the things we all just kind of talked about kind of making whatever choices you want. But of course, like within a certain um structure, there's some boundaries. So like if a player wants to do something, they have to usually roll the dice. Not everything, like obviously, if they're like, I want to go into a store, they don't have to roll a dice for that. It's like, nope, you can't go into the store, you tripped. But and so learning the rules and then enforcing them, not enforcing them, but being able to do like the guiding on top of then trying to move the story along, um, and then wing it when the story doesn't go the way I think it will. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. Which is all, it's really interesting because you have to do a lot of like thinking on your feet. And because the players, most of them are first time players. So we have Olivia's experienced, and that's
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
So so everyone else is a first time player, so we are playing through a very like the classic beginner adventure of the Lost Mines of Fendelver.
And was that the first one you played
Yes, that is the
when
first
you were
one I
learning?
played. Yes. So, it's really funny to see them doing the same things that I did and my party did and then making totally different choices. Which is just it's funny, so it's the same story, but it's just unfolding really differently. And it's fun to reflect back. And I've been talking to Ryan. I'm like, do you remember this? Because I don't remember that. And I was like, I guess we just never ran into that. Um, and so that's been interesting too. But also it's been helpful for me as a new DM because I do know the story. It's like I do know some of these characters so I don't have to reinvent them. Um and yeah, so like, it's been fun just winging it and then occasionally, and this might not be the right thing to do if there's any like novice DMs out there, but like sometimes we'll be, how do I do this? And I'll say, I don't know. We'll just
Sometimes she goes, "Ryan!"
Yeah, sometimes I call Ryan, but sometimes Ryan's not available, and so we just come up with some kind of answer. I'm like, "Sure, that seems fair. Why not?" Um, I've actually found combat to be the most difficult thing to run, and
Okay.
not because of like anything in particular. It's just a lot of managing a lot of people, and then also I'm trying to remember what everyone can do.
As most campaigns have about how many people? Because we have a large party.
Right. So I would say generally like it's recommended to start with like 4. The Mines of Feldelver is supposed to be like a max of 4 to 5 and we have 6. So occasionally I've had to make foes more difficult or add one because I don't want you guys to kill them in a round. Like that's no fun. Um so it has to be a little bit difficult. Um without being so difficult that you kill your whole party. And so there's some balance in that. But it's funny because I think about this where we give Ryan a hard time. It's like, well, why are they attacking me? And it's just like you're just next to the monster. That's who they're gonna attack. Um, and so silly things like that. Um, and then I find, like, do you want to do anything else? And I get wide eyes from my players, like, what else can I do? And I'm like, I don't know. So what do anything else? Um, so that kind of stuff is pretty funny. I have never fudged a roll.
Well,
Sometimes
I
DMs,
believe that.
yeah, some DMs will do, and like I get that. Because again, if like the monster never gets to do its cool thing, um, but for the most part, I kind of try to be really honest. And I know the players are so like this last. Well, you guys played through this last session. I was trying to promote more engagement and role play, and so we
That's what I was thinking about it. I was like, I was trying so hard to help you with that, which is anti what my character would
I
do.
know.
Like, my character would be totally behind being very quiet, ignoring everybody else. but Shayna was like, talk to each other.
Because in real life, if you have like 3 days, there's going to be some conversations. Um,
So I ended up talking to some animals.
which was a lot of fun. But it's yeah, no, Kathy'd be like, so
Where are you from?
yes. And it was so fun. And that stuff comes more naturally, like we definitely had awkward exchanges like that as an early player. And now, like, you know, we'll have whole sessions where we don't do any combat. Um, it's all just straight up role play. Because you get into it.
And I think just like as a newbie, or someone like I never did acting or dramatic kind of things, role playing was not anything I ever did. So it definitely feels like, at least in combat, there's some structure.
Yes,
Like
yeah.
you have your turn, you have your set of things like that you can do on those turns, so you can anticipate that. Um, but yeah, just again, trying to figure out the rules of like, okay, is this Kathy? Is this my character? Is this, and then what are they doing? And um, yeah,
Yeah, and it's like, just make something up. Like it's okay. Like it can be my favorite color is orange as this character. It doesn't have to be anything um serious. And so I think that's like no that comes with and no one's really using an accent, which is okay. Again, that's all pretty typical. Um
I was going to. So, my character is a tiefling druid, which if you listen to the first episode, you know that. Um, and my DM made it canon that tieflings speak in a Canadian accent. And so I was really going to do that this last session, and then I totally forgot. Like, I watched YouTube video tutorials to try and get the right,
oh,
but
sorry.
exactly.
Your little chipmunk has now been my new favorite accent for your characters.
Yeah, it's been my favorite too. He was really fun.
Shayna does the voices. It's great. You get into it. I love it. And the
I
chipmunk
try.
is the best. Yeah. Olivia, tell us a little bit about the character you chose for this campaign that we're doing.
So I am choosing a character that is honestly very different for me. So I'm a kenku, which is basically a giant black bird. Um, and kenkus, um, they don't speak like naturally, so they can only say words that they have heard other like outwardly. So they mimic. Um, and so that was kind of a great opportunity for me to do different voices based on who said it, but I struggle with my accent, so it just comes out as me. Or sometimes I'll just be like really obnoxious and repeat things that the other party members say, which annoys them, but I kind of like that.
Hmm.
Um, and he's also a monk, so I've never played a character that is not that cannot use spells. So it's been really difficult for me to like, okay, well, I can't just use a spell. I have to like punch them. And that is how I spent my 3 days traveling, as I just was practicing my punches. And then Kathy was asking where her party members were from, and we're just going back and forth.
It's funny because actually, like, so this is actually very unusual, in my opinion, of a starting party. Generally, everyone is drawn to magic. And so I expected a lot of magic casters. And we don't have magic casters, almost the opposite. So a lot of people are in close combat, which is why everyone's getting hit by monsters. There's not a lot of range um fighters. If combatians, I don't know. So we have our party is made up of the Kenku monk, Scribbles, and then Torment, the tiefling druid, and then we have Domani, the half orc warlock, um, and Serena, the dragonborn paladin. So who's kind of half tank, half magic. Um, and then we have a halfling rogue and an elf rogue.
Well, and I think the other thing too that's interesting, so it's all women playing it, but 3 3 of
3,
us
yep.
are doing playing male characters.
Yeah, so we it's still a mixture and it's really funny. Um, and there are sparks of personalities. What I've noticed is everyone is kind of broody. We don't have like that ray of sunshine in the party.
I don't know, Wilkins kind of and Scribbles is.
Adri.
Adri's yes. Adri's kind of quiet. But again, we don't know because everyone is still feeling each other out just naturally, which is again a normal. So all this to say, if you're starting D&D, it's okay if your character kind of reflects who you are or you're not using an like none of that matters. All of it takes time to get comfortable.
Well, and everybody I think likes something different.
I was gonna say, what has your experience been as a new player?
So I was the biggest thing, and I think I talked about this before, that I really looked forward to is in most other areas of my life, I'm in charge or I have to be the person that makes all the decisions. And I really liked not having that and just kind of leaving it up to you to guide us where to go and get to be um, not very proficient at something and not have to pretend like I am. So that was nice. But then I think the first several sessions, I really felt like I didn't know what was going on. And I'm a magic caster and magic is confusing. And there's still one that like I want to switch it out because and I so I have to get permission from my DM because it's a cantrip and technically you're supposed to not switch out cantrips, but I want to get rid of that stupid magic pebble thing because we cannot figure out how to appropriately use it and I want it to be gone.
I hear you. Yeah, some of the magic is confusing, and that's one of the reasons. Like my current player is a fighter, and I picked a fighter because I had played a bard, and then I had played, well, rangers is primarily more fighting, but honestly, like the magic stuff, I always felt so overwhelmed looking at like the list of spells, and then being upset when I chose one that I didn't like, and so I didn't want to have to deal with any of that. So that's why I was a fighter. I was like, I just want to hit things.
The session before last, we leveled up to level 3 and so that gave me an opportunity. I now can cast level 2 spells, and so it gave me a little opportunity to and I feel like after we played and I was doing my research on that, it like clicked in my head like, oh, okay, I am understanding the magic casting a lot better. But like when you were first explaining it and you're like, you get to prepare spells, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
I know. And so much of D&D I think is like suspension of disbelief or like almost like don't it is all going to make sense sometime and it's like doesn't matter how much I explain it to you. It's it's not gonna make sense until it makes sense. Um, and it reminds me of, like so we did a book club, and do you remember when we read the Crescent City book, Olivia?
Yeah.
And, yeah, and everyone's like, the first couple chapters were just like, "There is so much information, none of it makes any sense to me." And I was the one I kinda had started originally because 'cause I'm a slow reader, so I knew that it's like a 800-page book, so, like, I knew I needed extra time to read it than, like, some of the other people in the club. And I told I remember telling Olivia, "Just go with it. Just go with it." And honestly, that's kind of D&D too, that there is so much information in the beginning that you just need to don't question it. Don't don't do and like literally just kind of absorb the information um and go with it and it's going to make sense.
I think, and I kind of, this is something I wanted to touch on too, and I know I kind of talked with you about this a few weeks ago, but for me, that what is what has been nice with the group that is playing now is like I feel a level of safety with being able to be, I don't like to be vulnerable. Like it's okay to make mistakes, but like a lot of people play games like this or get really passionate about it that don't really leave room for other people to be vulnerable or make mistakes or not know what they're doing. Like they feel like it takes away from the game. So that kind of helps. But in my effort, because this is how who I am, of when I research the spells that I want to do, um, I look at the the handbook, but then I look at other websites and Reddit and things like that. Like, am I really getting this right? Which is why I'm so frustrated with the Magic Stone, Magic Pebble one. Because
I'll look at it and then I'll
can you just let me get rid of it? I
let
don't
me look
want it.
at it one more
Okay.
time,
Look at it
and
one
then
more time.
I'll talk to Ryan about it, and then
It's fine. You don't have to let me get rid of it. I'll either
I
not use it at all or
no,
figure it out.
that's a waste of time to me. So, especially like I see that's the stuff that I don't love about the super hardcore DMs is that like, well, you picked it, so you're stuck with it. My players are new; they picked it because they think it sounded cool, and it sucks, and so we're gonna
Right.
change. Like that's silly to me. But I think it can be cool if we figure out how to use the thing. So it's like that.
I mean, maybe. Like, it can be cool in that they're like, it can be useful because it can be a ranged weapon for non-magical people because I can give a pebble to somebody else.
Interesting.
So that's how they're like, it could be helpful in that way. Anyway, that wasn't really what I was just, venting about my stupid cantrip. Um, but part of that has also been I've watched Vox Machina and I've listened to some of the Critical Role podcasts and I joined like, a D&D Facebook group just really so I can lurk and see how people talk about it and cuz that's how I can get things to click. And a few weeks ago, and I guess apparently every so often people will post this specific thing, but it's a document that someone had created at some point that is for a DM to use when they're putting together a party, which explores um, people's perhaps like maybe triggers to allow them to create a universe that is safe for all of their players. So it'll have like just questionnaire about like people can mark it as green, yellow, or red. Like green is like go, no restrictions, doesn't bother me at all. Yellow is like depending on the situation, like it may be something that I have to tread lightly around, but I'm cool. Um, ask me if you have more, if you need more information about it. And the red is like a hard no. Like I don't want that in my campaign. And so it'll explore things like bugs or certain scenarios or like sex. Like, is there any between PCs and NPCs? And then kissing, more than that. So it's like creating an experience and over all these things. And the comment section is about what you'd expect, but um like as someone who's a trauma therapist, it's just like it still always punches me straight in the gut when I see people who just have like zero empathy for someone struggling with something. And it's very much like, well, you shouldn't be playing then, or you shouldn't, you have to get control of your triggers. The world's not gonna bend to what you need. And I'm like, but this isn't the world. It's D&D and you're playing with a handful of people. And you should be able to be safe in the environment that you're in. So it's okay. I was just talking, so it doesn't matter that you blipped out. So anyway, that is something that I feel very strongly about when game playing. Like there is an opportunity, especially in something like D&D, to maybe explore things that could be a trigger for you. But if there's a situation, like if you don't feel safe or you feel pressure from your players that make you feel unsafe, like you can leave. You don't It's a game. It's supposed to be fun. And if it's not fun, don't let anyone bully you into thinking there's something wrong with you.
Exactly. It's and as an example, one of our players, I've like realized that she does not like spiders.
Mhm, I
And
was just gonna say that.
why would I torture her for that? So like I changed them to scorpions. Like what it doesn't hurt me and and there will not be spiders in the rest of the game. Um and that's
It doesn't
okay.
change anything. And I was thinking about that too in terms of like the mental health aspect because you could kind of see her grappling with it and she was like, but I feel like my character would be okay with this. And so trying to in a very safe way, obviously there were no spiders actually around. So was trying to tiptoe on this thing that is a phobia, obviously, and saying I feel like my character would do this, so I'm gonna try to push through it. And when that continued to be a point of anxiety, you just like how about if they're scorpions? She was like, totally fine.
Yeah, like, why would I and there was no one made fun of her, like, because why would we? Like, there's no point, and the same thing, like, we have actual little mini spiders. Notice I have not used any of those 'cause I'm not going to. Um, why again, like, why would I? Why would we do that? There's just it doesn't make sense. Scorpions are terrifying to me, so, like, it's almost worse in my opinion. So, that's fine, and I'm almost debating, like, should we just because there's the big bad guy or, what you guys know as the black spider. They could be the black scorpion, I don't care.
Yeah.
Uh, yep. So, there's no reason to, bother your players.
Yes. Yes. And I think, and this was I was talking with my Matt about it too. I'm like, on one hand, well, on one hand, yes, most of the commenters, almost all of them were exclusively men, though most of the people in the group are men, which is, again, like D&D spaces aren't always female friendly spaces. Um and that's something that I take for granted because my only experience with it has been all women. And but a lot of the people pushing back on it were also men. But it also kind of brings up the thing, I'm like, most men are not playing in a situation where their character is going to be like sexually assaulted, and then you're wondering, is someone flirting? Flirting and sexual assault are different things, so I'm kind of talking about different things. Or a character flirting with your character, and then you're like, are they flirting with me? Like, where's the line there of, again, like safety? And that's difference in playing with people that you know really well, or spouses, versus people that you meet online, which a lot of people don't have access to players in their area and then find groups online.
Yeah. And it's so easy to leave all of that stuff out. Like we of course make all kinds of jokes because we're all adults and we're all but if anyone expressed discomfort, one, I would hope that they would feel comfortable doing so. Um and then we would do something about it. That's the good thing about being therapists though.
Yeah.
We're all gonna be very but I remember, like so in the side campaign we played, my character had a huge crush on Olivia's husband's character. And I actually did have a conversation, one with Olivia to say, "Hey, what are your thoughts? Like what is like, of course, like I'm not going to even entertain this idea if you're not comfortable with it." Um and then we made sure Matt was okay with it, like so there was a whole conversation all around it cuz like if people are uncomfortable, it was still awkward as all hell, but
That's why it was so great.
it was a very, like it was perfect. So funny. Um,
Kind of on brand for Shayna.
and Matt.
For sure.
Um, yeah. So, but yeah, no, it's important to have those conversations and make sure, like, everyone is comfortable, and if people aren't, don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are, like, some of because Olivia, you've played now a number of characters too, like, what's something that you found, like, how do you change up your characters, shift between them? I know even it's funny when we were shifting back to our normal ones, I had to get back into the groove of being my normal character, which was weird. Um, but what do you think? Does that make sense? Does that question make sense? How do you differentiate your characters and play them differently? And
Uh, so I guess like in my main character, um, she is probably the most like me. She's a little outgoing, but she's still like that quirky. Um, I think a lot of it is just based on like, okay, she doesn't really know what she's doing, especially in the beginning. She's just a lot of confusion on who she is, how she was brought up. Whereas my character, when we kind of went back in the past, he's like full on social awkwardness. he reminds me of myself when I was a teenager and he's in
Mm.
college, stuff like that. So some of the stuff that I would say is him was actually kind of cringy if I think about it. So I don't think about it. Um, but and then in this campaign, with y'all, that character's like nothing I've ever really played before. Um, but I haven't really like I'm still trying to connect with him as well, so I haven't really completely identified all of his pieces of his personality, stuff like that. So he's still kind of just up in the air.
Yeah. Is it weird? Because sometimes when I think about, like, developing another character, like, I feel so attached to mine, and I don't know if that's just because it's my first character.
No,
Um,
it's not
but
that.
y
No.
Nope.
it's not.
Mm-mm.
I in my primary character again, I've been playing as that character for almost 2 years, and over the summer something happened and my character died, like not like died, and I was so upset. I was crying in the middle of campaign, and I'm just like, this character I'm
It's
so incredibly
horrible.
close with. Yeah, I still am still kind of scarred. But I think going back to like being safe with your DM, that's another point too, that Ryan was a lot more self-aware of like, okay, I have to be a little more gentle when we're talking about this. Um, but then when we started the side campaign, I'm like, well, I'm so close to my character. I don't even really want to create a new character. And now he's one of my favorites too. So I was extremely attached to my characters and I still am.
Same. Mm-hmm. Yep. So the one that we fizzled out, I was a Tabaxi Ranger, and I'm sad that no one's a Ranger because honestly, I think that's been my favorite ever class to play. Um, and I never got to finish her. She just kind of was off into the world doing nothing. Um,
So you, like, wish you could spend more time with her.
yeah, it's so cool, and you get to, you intentionally spend this time developing a story for these people, and it's cool to be able to unfold that, as you decide to. And what's cool about backstories is, like my very first character didn't have much of an exciting backstory, which is fine. That's not super uncommon either. Um, unless you're a therapist, and then that's everyone's backstories are riddled in trauma.
Riddled in trauma, and then some of the therapists describe some of the characteristics with things like reaction formation,
Projection. They projected
projection.
their reading those things was like reading a clinical note, but
Mm,
it's pretty funny. But the backstories, like our backstories, influence the choices we make, and who we are.
mhm.
And so, my current character has a very interesting backstory. They're a changeling, and so they actually have they have four personas. They almost have four different backstories, all one backstory that
Mm.
flows into each other. Um, but one of the one that kind of the two main one's a war general, not a general, he was like a war captain, um and fought in the war for whatever amount of years, and then the other one is grew up in a village and competed in discus competitions.
Sounds so random.
I know, I had to choose a sport, and that's the one that
Oh,
I
okay.
but it came up because there was a point where I had to throw something, so I threw it like a discus, so, like, it was
You
relevant.
know, you know what? Now that I had to choose an instrument and famously chose bagpipes, and I'm really mad that I forgot I had bagpipes because that would have made our 2 to 3 day trek a lot more interesting.
I was waiting for it, and I well, that's why I'll throw
We
out
still have to come back, so.
yes, exactly. And that's like, the a bard is a really fun because the bards tend to be the outgoing um ones that do ridiculous impulsive things. It's just generally like the characteristics of a bard. So Olivia's shy bard is a little different, which is really sweet. I love Olivia's character in ours. She's just really sweet and tender and curious. Um and But yeah, so we're missing like some of the more charismatic is the word I'm looking for. Charismatic classes, which is okay. It's just, they got to kind of come into their own. And so but you don't have someone playing the lute for 3 days straight, annoying everyone. Um, yeah, we could have someone playing the bagpipes though.
We will next time with a Canadian accent. Yeah, I still have to fully embody my character. It's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, and you can do really silly things like, if you I had art supplies, I wasn't proficient in it, which meant that like one of my shadow actually like my tabaxi was constantly painting, but the paintings are terrible. Um but constantly painting. I had like the sketchbook of bad and I would randomly paint stuff. And my other one of my other personas, his name's Asher, has a book that he's always writing stuff in, and no one has really figured out what the heck that is. No one's asked either. so so he's got his thing, and then Annalie, whatever you want to call her, I honestly don't care. Um, she pulls pranks and does things, so she'll swap stuff, and I think I swapped like sugar and salt or something like that, like stupid things. So there's all these like little silly things.
I never noticed that Asher wrote in a journal. So now I have that piece of information.
It's like I will ask about it.
It's always in very certain moments. I'm surprised no one has really like picked up on it. But it's fun to like leave those little Easter eggs of your backstory. Um, so if someone has actually one of my favorite characters in Critical Role. I haven't even seen all of the campaign, but he's played by Liam O'Brien, and his name's Caleb, and he has pretty significant PTSD. And he plays the PTSD very, very well. Um, where anytime anything to do with fire, he kind of starts hyperventilating, um, and I just like I think that's really cool and interesting. So again, those are little nuggets um, that people can do. Like my character Shadow had her favored foe. A ranger has to pick like a favored foe, and mine was dragons. So anytime there was anything to do with dragons, um, she would suddenly become, like her hair would rise and um, things like that.
So, I mean, I can see with all of this too. I mean, it just makes so sense for how we view the world as therapists of all of someone's experiences and um, the relationships they have in the world that they live in impact how they experience the world now. Like, and that is very much what happens to characters.
Yep, D&D is a great way to practice some self exploration. Um, and even so things that I know Olivia's used these things too in sessions, um, of using character sheets to help clients explore their own backstories and their own strengths, their own um, things like that.
Hmm. What's your motivation? That's another kind of way of looking. It's like what is your end, not goal, but what keeps you moving forward. All right, y'all. I guess it's time for our side quest. So, Shayna, you go first. What have you been into?
I've been doing a lot of reading, so I'm currently reading Olivia's favorite series ever, called the Lux series. Yeah. Um, but they've been really, really good, and I've been enjoying them. And she gets text messages regularly from me, complaining about characters or comments. I actually have been meaning to text you about my most recent read. Anyway, and then I've also been listening to Sarah J. Mass's A Court of Thorns and Roses series on audiobooks, and I'm on the last book of that, and it is really good. So that series is really good, 18 plus. Um, yeah, so that's kind of what I've been doing.
Olivia, what about you?
I've also been reading a lot. I've been reading through a bunch of series, but I'm about to start this book called Daisy Jones and the Six. It was recommended to me by my sister, and so I'm looking forward to reading it and kind of just sharing that, that love with her. Um, yeah, that's what I'm doing in my free time.
Excellent. So mine's a little different this time. y'all know, because I told you beforehand that last night I went on a ghost tour of the Tampa Theater. And I really enjoy ghost tours just in general. Um, I've been on this ghost tour before. It was a little different. It was with, it was in the evening. So it was after dark, after everything's all closed down. So it was a cool place to go. But if you're not familiar with Tampa Theater, it is one of the old. Have you guys ever been?
Yeah.
Okay. That is, it's just this really beautiful, um, historic theater in downtown Tampa. It's set up when you go in, just it's decorated to look like a Mediterranean garden inside, like you're watching a play under the stars or something. Um, so I just really enjoy being there in general, but also fun fact for me is that my grandparents met there. So I feel
Aw.
like I wouldn't exist if it wasn't for there. So this probably would have been in the 40s, I'm guessing, based on my dad's age.
That's awesome. You
Yeah.
went to see.
And I have a picture of my grandmother at the candy table there. Yeah.
That's really cool. I think you've shared that before on the
Mhm.
yep.
And I can share it like on our social media.
Olivia and I went to see Rocky Horror Picture Show at the Tampa Theater.
Oh, fun.
I think I've also been on a ghost tour in downtown Tampa too, but it was like forever ago, so I couldn't remember any of the stories.
Yeah, I think I saw Eddie Izzard there and Amy Mann in concert there. So like good non-movie stuff too happens there.
hmm Well, thank you,
All
Olivia, for
right.
coming on. She'll be back to talk about Studio Ghibli at some point.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to Mental Mages. Editing is by Ryan Merrill. Artwork by Matthew Gwaltney. Intro music is Call to Adventure by Kevin MacLeod. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license.
For more information on our podcast, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Mental Mages Podcast. Well, it's time for us to go take a long rest. Until next time, adventurers. Do you have any questions or expectations, Olivia?
What should I expect?
Low expectations.
Yeah.
She froze again.
um,
So she's probably saying her piece
no,
right now and won't realize that we can't hear her
I can hear you.
until she realizes nobody says anything back.
No, it's even better. I'm gonna be
Ugh.
shouting into the distance. La la la, I will sing until I come back. My foot is asleep.